Hey guys, today we're going to be analyzing Partynextdoor's greatest tracks, and we're going to be using this madness bracket as a template. So we're not going to waste any time, we're going to get straight into it. So the first matchup we have is Break from Toronto and Recognize. So Break from Toronto was sort of the sound that basically introduced Partynextdoor, back in 2013. It gave people that first sort of introduction into his sort of trap and B sort of genre, and he basically sort of evolutionized a whole genre and a whole sound based off this 2 minute song, and that is up against Recognize, and that has the obviously has the feature with Drake. I feel like Ray from Toronto sort of introduced his style, but Recognize helped to cement it, because when he dropped Recognize in like 2014, before Partynextdoor 2 was out, it was basically a single, and that sort of gained loads of traction, and it was like sort of like, whoa, what's this? Like, it was just something new. It had production that wasn't really done before, in a style that wasn't really done before in the past. So these are two really like groundbreaking songs for in Partynextdoor's career. So to match them up is a bit tough, but I'd have to go with Break from Toronto, because without Break from Toronto, there wouldn't be any of this sound. Sort of Break from Toronto happened so that Recognize could happen. So for that reason, I'd go with Break from Toronto. Okay, so the next matchup we have is Loyal and Over Here. So these two tracks, obviously they both have a Drake feature, but in Loyal, the Drake feature it's more of a supporting act as opposed to a feature. It's basically Drake sort of almost repeating Partynextdoor's verse. It's Loyal's a catchy track. It's a nice catchy track. It's like sort of summery type beat. It's very like light-hearted. He's not really talking about anything on the track. It's just sort of like sort of like a radio-friendly type of song. And then we have Over Here, and Drake's verse on that was an actual feature, as per se. Um, Over Here was one of the first tracks that I personally had heard from Partynextdoor, back when Drake sort of posted Partynextdoor on his OVO blogs, October's very own blogs, and he posted that, and then I heard that for the first time, and I was like, oh, okay, this is something a bit different. This production that I haven't really heard before, because bearing in mind the time, 2013, the general music wasn't really developed, as we say. So I would say that Over Here was the more impactful track than Loyal. Loyal was just sort of a track that was released ahead of Partymobile, um, and it was just sort of a single that was released beforehand, and it didn't really have much impact as a song. And as a song, it's quite simple, but it's still a good song nevertheless. But I'd have to go Over Here for the better song. So that's Over Here. And then the next matchup we have is Just Know and No Feelings. So both of these have Travis Scott features. Um, Just Know is off Colors One, his Colors One EP, and No Feelings was sort of like a throwaway sort of, it was like a loosey type track that wasn't really put out as per se. I think it was only really like leaked on his Drake's OVO Sound Radio, and then but it wasn't really formally put out. So Travis Scott's feature on Just Know is just basically he does the outro on the track. But I feel like it was sort of unneeded. It was not unnecessary. Like, the song could definitely have just gone without Travis Scott, and it is a good song. It's a very good song. Released around 2014. No Feelings was released around 2015, and that was sort of around the sort of like codeine sort of era. And 2015 was sort of like the peak for Partynextdoor, to be honest. Like, that's when he was just basically putting out tracks, and every single one of them were bangers. So based on that, I would go with Just Know as the better track. Obviously, barring Travis Scott's outro. but nevertheless, I feel like it's a more well-rounded track. No Feelings was a bit more rough. It was like, obviously, it wasn't formally released. Um, and maybe if it had been formally released, maybe it'd have more of a chance. But I feel like Just Know was more of a well-rounded track. So I'd go with Just Know for that. So the next matchup we have is You've Been Missed and Wednesday Night Interlude. So You've Been Missed was off his P3 album, and Wednesday Night Interlude technically isn't actually his song, technically Drake's song, but Drake doesn't actually, have any lyrics or anything to do with the song, but it's basically was put on Drake's tape. Now, these are two really big songs in Partynextdoor's discography. They're sort of the more dim, sort of low-mooded type of tracks. I'd say it's when I heard Wednesday Night Interlude, obviously back in 2015 when Drake released his "If You're Reading This Is Too Late" album, and then hearing You've Been Missed in 2016, it was sort of like, it felt like You've Been Missed was sort of the part two to Wednesday Night Interlude. So it's an interesting matchup, actually. But I would have to go Wednesday Night Interlude because that is honestly one of my favorite songs from Partynextdoor. Like, the production is crazy. The Akali sample is just amazing, and it's almost like a crime that he just gave Drake a song to put on his tape, because this was one of his best songs. And honestly, he shouldn't have given it away. And I think he even said in an interview that it was one of his regrets that he gave that song away, because it's an amazing track. So without a doubt, I'd go with Wednesday Night Interlude. But nevertheless, You've Been Missed is still a good track, and it was one of my personal favorites from his P3 album. But I'd have to go Wednesday Night Interlude for that. Okay, so the next matchup we have is What's Good / Curious and FWU. So What's Good / Curious was off P1. It's basically a classic party. He put this song at the end of the Break from Toronto official video. It's a good track. It's classic party. It's classic P1. We know when you listen to P1, you hear What's Good / Curious. It's one of the bigger tracks on P1, and that's up against Fuck With You, which is off P2. Now, I would go with Fuck With You only because it's more developed as a track. There's still it's hard to pit these two together, honestly, because it's like they're doing two completely different things. And sonically, in terms of his music, he was doing two different things. P1 was sort of the introduction into his whole trap and B type genre that he was basically introduced into the world. And then you had Fuck With You, which of P2, which was sort of the development of the sound that he had before. And that's one thing I definitely like about Partynextdoor. He's always tried to evolve after every album. He hasn't just stayed stagnant. He could have literally just released, a P1, a second part to P1, for example, as his second album, but he decided not to. He was a bit more experimental on the, production-wise, lyric-wise, song structure-wise. He had like more. Partynextdoor 2 album had more adventurous samples, like Sex on the Beach, he was sampling Sam Smith, and that's something I really liked from Partynextdoor 2 album. So for that reason, I'd go with Fuck With You for that matchup. Okay, and the next matchup we have is Her Way and Let's Get Married. Now, this one is a tough one because both of these are sort of personal favorites for me. Her Way, was off Partynextdoor 2. Let's Get Married was off his Colours 1 EP. And I feel like for both of these songs, they have a really high replay value. Like, even up to this day, I still play both of these songs. But I think I'd go with Her Way because I think maybe just because of the nostalgia behind it. I sort of remember how life was, back in 2014 when he released Her Way. It was sort of like a summer soundtrack, if that makes sense. So I think, yeah, I'd go with Her Way, just based on that. But they're both two really strong songs. Um, so yeah, that's Her Way. And the next matchup we have is Don't Worry and Put It on Silent. So Don't Worry, obviously, that was again from Colours, his Colours 1 EP, which is a very strong EP. I really like that EP. Um, um, and that's up against Put It on Silent. Put It on Silent, that has the Ty Dolla $ign feature. That was that again was a sort of throwaway as well. It was sort of released in between in between two projects. A sort of throwaway. It wasn't really attached to any body of work. And yeah, for that reason, I'll just go with Don't Worry. I think that's an easy one. Definitely Don't Worry. Yeah, I think Partynextdoor and Cash Out did well on that track. So yeah, I'd go with Don't Worry. The next matchup we have is Buzzin and Just a Rider. So Buzzin, obviously that had Lil Yachty feature. That was also released as sort of a Lucy track. And that's just your standard sort of trap party. And then you also have Just a Rider, which was, that one wasn't even, it wasn't even released as a track. It was sort of just, a leak. All my real party fans will know about Just a Rider, the song that pretty much never got released. It was one of the millions of snippets that PNE gave us, but didn't actually give us. So yeah, real fans will know about that one. For that, I think I'd give it to Buzzin. Just because the time when Buzzin came out, it was very interesting. It was sort of when you had sort of the rise of quote unquote mumble rappers coming out. So you had Lil Yachty, Playboy Kai, all of them that were sort of coming up, and to see Lil Yachty and PND have like a collab was something that was so crazy. It was like very, very unexpected, and it worked really well. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. So just off of that, yeah, I'd go Buzzing. But Just a Rider is a very I'd give it like an honorable mention, because that is classic trap party. So but as a song, I'd give it to Buzzing. Okay. So from this section now, I need to choose between Break from Toronto and Over Here. So, so these are two tracks that were from Partynextdoor 1. I'd easily go with Break from Toronto. It was the more impactful track for Partynextdoor's career. Like whenever you think of Partynextdoor, you think of Break from Toronto. So it's an easy win for that. And then you have to choose between Just Know and Wednesday Night Interlude. Again, that's also an easy one. Even though they're two tracks that I still play a lot, I'd easily go with Wednesday Night Interlude just because of the sample. It was Wednesday Night Interlude is one of his greatest tracks. So yeah, I'd go Wednesday Night Interlude for that. And then you have to choose between Fuck With You and Her Way. So that's like a battle between sort of Partynextdoor 2. I'd go with Her Way. I think, yeah, I'd go with Her Way. That was another sort of defining moment of Partynextdoor's career. So yeah, I'd go with Her Way. And then now I have to choose between Don't Worry and Buzzin'. Don't Worry and Buzzin'. That's sort of two songs that are also among the sort of trap and B realm of party. For that one, I think I'd go with. Don't Worry. I guess Don't Worry was sort of it. Obviously, Buzzing wasn't tied to a project, but Don't Worry was. It was part of a project, and I guess it sort of added a break to a project that was just fully R&B. That's why I liked Colours EP, because Colours 1 EP, because I felt like in those 4 tracks, it sort of embodied his whole style. You had Let's Get Married, on his sort of old type R&B vibe, but like sort of with his own new type of style to it. You had Girl from Oakland, which is classic PND. You had Don't Worry, which obviously sort of gave it a sort of break. And there's one I'm missing. Don't worry. Wait, let's get married. Go home, Oakland. Yeah, and just know. And I feel like yeah, that EP in general just sort of it showed his whole style just in 4 tracks. It showed it had Just Know and Don't Worry, which were more on the trap side, and Let's Get Married and Girls from Oakland, that sort of was on his old R&B tip. So I really like that project. But yeah, I'd go Don't Worry. Yep. And now I have to choose between Break from Toronto and Wednesday Night Interlude. Oh, no, this is a hard one. This is a tough one. I honestly wish they were in 2 different sections. Um, Damn. Break from Toronto and Wednesday Night Interlude. Oh, I'd go with. Oh my gosh, this is a tough one. These should have definitely been in different sections. So Break from Toronto was his bigger track, but yeah, this definitely should have been in 2 different sections. Oh my goodness. We're really choosing between Break from Toronto and Wednesday Night Interlude already. Because I know most people would say Break from Toronto, yeah, that's Party Next Door, that's classic party, but Wednesday Night Interlude was just a completely like it was moment changing. It was crazy. I think for me, I'd go with Wednesday Night Interlude. I know I'm probably gonna get loads of hate in the comments for that, but if we're talking, we can sit here and talk about what his most popular track was, and obviously Break on Toronto would have won already, but this isn't that. This is his best track, and I feel like while Break from Toronto was sort of genre defying in a sense, Wednesday Night Interlude was one of the centerpieces of his discography. It's one of my personal favorites, and I feel like it was also it was also genre defining. I feel like because the funny thing is there's no just as there's no track that sounds exactly like or back in the day, just as there was no track that sounded just like Break from Toronto, back in 2013, there was no track that sounded like Wednesday Night Interlude back in 2015. So I think like these two, they're sort of level in terms of um, as a track, but I'd go with Wednesday Night Interlude because I feel like it's only because of the sort of style of Wednesday Night Interlude, the sort of dim, sort of depressed type mood of Wednesday Night Interlude. That's what it doesn't catch as many people, but in terms of its impact as a song, I feel like they're both sort of level. But as a personal favorite to me, I'd go Wednesday Night Interlude. Yeah, it's just a shame they should have been in different sections, but yeah, I go Wednesday Night Interlude for that. And then now we have to choose between Her Way and Don't Worry. Um, Her Way and Don't Worry. Oh, that's easy. Her Way. Or Partynextdoor too. Yeah, Her Way is a beautiful track. Um, and then now for the winner of this section, we have to choose between Wednesday Night Interlude and Her Way. So that is Wednesday Night Interlude and Her Way. Um, I'd go Wednesday Night Interlude. Wednesday Night Interlude has to win this section. I mean, just off the strength of that sample, and Wednesday Night Interlude is a crazy track, and people don't. And I just wish it was on one of his own projects as opposed to being on Drake's. Maybe people would, appreciate more than just seeing it as obviously it is called an interlude, but to me it's more than an interlude. Like that could have easily just been called Wednesday Night and been put on like P&D's own discography. But I just feel like that's an amazing track, and it's very extremely underrated. I feel like only real fans know about Wednesday Night Interlude. It's an amazing track. Um, so I'd make it the winner of the next of this section. Okay, so the next section.